you doing, everybody? My name's Anthony Petriello. Welcome to AP on Cars. For my second review, I got access to the brand new 2018 Infiniti Q50 Sport all-wheel drive. This is the most recent vehicle in Infiniti's lineup following the G37. So under the hood of the Q50, this is a 3-liter twin-turbo direct-injected V6. When it comes to fuel economy, the 3-liter turbo engine gets 19 city and 27 highway in this all-wheel drive setup, 22 combined. It's a little bit better than the outgoing G37 while still providing more usable low-end power with the turbo setup, more low-end torque. It's not really a faster vehicle compared to the G37, maybe slightly faster, but where you're really going to feel it is that low-end power. This has 295 pound-feet of torque compared to the G37's 267 pound-feet of torque. So that extra jump in torque, you're really going to feel it in day-to-day driving. When it comes to power, it's actually down on the G37. This has 300 horsepower compared to the G37's 328 horsepower. So the exhaust on the Q50, especially when compared to a G37 with an exhaust, is significantly quieter. Partially due to the turbos. Those tend to quiet down the exhaust, but I'll give you a little bit of a clip here to give you an idea. When it comes to trunk space in the Q50, it features an identical amount to the G37, 13.5 cubic feet. The cargo area is slightly differently shaped than the G37, but in the end it ends up being the same amount of space. As to whether or not it's more usable, that's something that you really have to own the car and experience to see if it'll fit your needs. One bonus with the Q50 compared to the G37 is your seats actually fold down. You have releases on either side here, and that's something that the G37 didn't have. It simply had a center pass-through into the back seats. So it makes the back of this car a lot more usable for big items. The taillights were recently redesigned. You have a LED brake, LED yellow turn signal now as opposed to red, LED reverse, and LED nighttime lights that actually go along the top here and sweep along the bottom. It's a really a nice look. So this Q50 Sport, it's not the Red Sport 400, so just the standard Sport with the 3.0 turbo. Features 19-inch alloy wheels. These are wrapped in 245/40 19 tires. They're Dunlop SP Sport 5000s. One thing to be aware of, the tread wear on these is 260, so you're going to expect to have to replace these fairly quickly. Now this vehicle only has 200 miles on it, and if you look closely here, you can actually see that the edges of the tires are already starting to shred with only 200 miles on the vehicle. So if that gives you any indication as to how quickly these tires are going to have to be replaced, that should show you right there. This Q50 Sport also features the carbon accents. I'm not sure if it's a package, but maybe an Infiniti dealer installed option. It has the carbon fiber mirror caps, as well as around back here it has the carbon fiber rear lip spoiler. It's all real carbon fiber, sort of a fake sport, you know, trying to make you think that it's more sporty than it is, but I think it's a nice touch, especially on this graphite shadow metallic paint. The gray kind of matches nicely in the carbon fiber. So as far as headlights are concerned, you have a bi-xenon lamp for your high and low, LED accented strip along the top, LED accent around the sides. This portion right here is sort of a faux high beam. This actually does nothing. Down here you have LED fog lights and LED turn signals. So they really updated the lineup from the G37, which does feature bi-xenon headlights, but no LED turn signals, no LED fog lights, no LED accents at all. There actually is no daytime running lights on that vehicle. So this particular Q50 also does not feature the Bose sound system. If you do opt for the Bose sound system in your Q50, you are going to get metal speaker grills right here. It gives it a little bit more of a classier look. This vehicle is also missing the safety package, which is going to give you blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert with cross path detection, radar guided cruise control with automatic stop. It is a sort of an expensive package, but when you consider your savings on insurance as well as your savings on potentially avoiding an accident, it seems pretty worth it to me. If I was purchasing a brand new vehicle or leasing, I would definitely consider opting for those safety features. You do have to also consider, in the long term, if you're buying the car, it's another thing that could go wrong. You're adding a lot more technological systems to your vehicle. So stepping into the Q50, the first thing you're going to notice is the sport seats. They have adjustable bolsters here with this switch, manual adjustable thigh supports, which is really nice on a long trip, full power lumbar. The steering wheel in this vehicle is one of the things I noticed first. I've driven a 2016 Q50, had the older style steering wheel. This steering wheel is a huge improvement. The airbag is a lot smaller. The setup of the buttons is a lot nicer. The tactile feedback on them is a lot better. The gauges, still sort of a disappointment in my opinion. They're pretty much the same as you're going to get in a Nissan Pathfinder or a Infiniti Q60. They have a little bit of fancy bezels added onto them, but for the most part they're pretty basic. So as far as back seat space is concerned, it's a little bit tight. As you can see, this is me sitting behind myself. I sit sort of far back. I have the back of the seat a little bit more lean back, but you can see my knees are right up against the seat. Not a whole lot of room. Legroom is decent. I'm a size 15 shoe, and my feet fit on this floor, like underneath the seat, quite well. If you had a shorter driver, obviously this would be a more usable space. The back seat also features rear vents and a fold-down armrest with cup holders. Not the most usable cup holders, a little bit on the small side, but they're there nonetheless. So setting off in the new Q50, first thing you're going to notice when you drive this vehicle is the steering. You've heard probably at this point many automotive journalists complain about the steering in the Q50. This particular one doesn't have the dynamic steering package, which gives you sort of a computerized steering. This is electric power steering still, so you're still going to get that sort of numb feel. It is very easy to turn in parking lots and such. There's really not much effort compared to the older hydraulic systems, but in the vehicles that are equipped with the dynamic steering, this steering wheel is actually not physically connected to the front steering rack, so you're going to experience a lot more of a video game feel than you would with this vehicle, even though the steering in this isn't that much better in my opinion. I am a G37 owner, and I'm used to that hydraulic power steering. It's very tight on center, so when you're driving down the road it gives you a good amount of control. This, I noticed driving down the highway, you get a lot more movement of the vehicle in the lane. You have to constantly adjust your steering placement, and it's just not as direct on center. When it comes to the rest of the interior in this car, the infotainment, I'm not the biggest fan of the two-screen setup. It's a little bit confusing in my opinion and sort of unnecessary. I get the appeal of being able to have the navigation up on the screen at the same time as you have your music or climate control settings on this screen, but I mean, how many people are really using this navigation system on a daily basis? Pretty much nobody. And it's not the best navigation system. It's sort of outdated at this point. You can see the graphics are not the best compared to other luxury brands like BMW, Mercedes, Audi. They've stepped up to what we call the next generation of navigation systems. This is sort of an outdated setup still. So if you're like me and you like to keep your vehicle very clean on the inside, this piano black plastic in the center here goes from the screen all the way down to the center control button. It's very, very annoying to keep clean. It attracts dust and fingerprints like you would not believe. I am not a fan, and you'll hear some other car reviewers speak about this as well. Shout out to the Straight Pipes. He has expressed in the past that he doesn't like this, and I 100% agree. So when it comes to the center radio screen here, the graphics are pretty good. It's not by far not the best in the segment. If you look at the offerings from Mercedes, for example, the graphics are not up to par. For someone who's not really super technologically savvy, it's going to work just fine. It's a pretty simple layout, pretty self-explanatory. You also have your climate controls right on the screen here, as well as with physical controls on either side here. They do give you a volume knob that works just fine, but instead of giving you a tuning knob, they give you these buttons here, which I find really annoying because you have to either hold it down or sit there and tap it 400 times to get the channel that you want to get to. You can alleviate that obviously by having presets, but it's really not the best setup. This vehicle is equipped with heated seats and a heated steering wheel as well, keep you warm in the winter. It is not equipped with ventilated seats, which is something that many of the luxury brands now are offering, but it is not equipped on this Q50. The biggest competitor, in my opinion, would be the new Hyundai Genesis brand of products. They're offering tons and tons of features at a price that's comparable to this, if not less. I mean, you're not getting that same styling as you are in this car. In my opinion, this looks a little bit nicer than those vehicles. But if you're looking for just sheer value in your purchase, you can't go wrong with those cars. These tend to be a little bit on the higher end, more closer to what Mercedes and BMW are charging for their smaller sedans, such as the 3 Series and the C-Class. But this, in my opinion, and I'm a fan of Infiniti, not to sound biased at all, but this just, it lags behind the competition. I've driven the new C-Class and the most recent 3 Series, not the new one that's going to be coming out soon, and I was just more impressed with their interior than I was with this car. As I mentioned before, the steering wheel is really nice. If there's one thing that I would tell Infiniti to keep about this interior, it's the steering wheel. It's great to hold. It's got nice 10 and 2 notches here. The leather quality has been seriously upped since, especially the days of my G37. Another thing you will notice when driving the Q50 is especially the sport model. The standard model is a little bit better, but on the sport model, it has very thin sidewall tires with those 19-inch wheels. You do really notice the imperfections in the road a lot more than with something with a little bit more meat on the tires. It's not unbearable, especially when compared to sports cars and stuff like that. But in a luxury sedan where the primary function is to be luxurious and comfortable, this is something that people are gonna use to commute to work every day, and it's just a little firm for my taste. The thinness of the sidewall also doesn't help on choppy pavement when you're on a highway. It tends to follow the grooves in the pavement, which also adds to that having to constantly correct when you're on the road. Overall, it's just a more sporty setup, and I'm sure that's what some of you are thinking. Well, you're getting that sport package, you're gonna have to expect a little bit more of a sporty driving experience. I do get that, but the primary function of this vehicle is still to be a daily driver. It's not a track car. It's not a race car by any means. So the primary function should be to be comfortable on the road. Even though you're checking that sport package box when you're buying the car, you still have to expect a level of comfort at the same time. And you can see we just went over the center of that road there, and it's very almost jarring to a point. Some people won't mind that, but coming from a normal G37 that's not the sport model, I noticed that car rides a lot softer than this car does. I'm going to go ahead and put the car in sport mode. Pops up a little sport icon on there. Not really too much else happens. This car does not have paddle shifters. It simply has the gated shifter right here, which I don't even like to use. Without paddle shifters, I don't really see a point. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave it in drive. And here we go. As you can see, the acceleration is pretty brisk. It's not that spectacular. I honestly think that the G37 is pretty much as fast. You do feel the torque on the low end in this car, so just normal day-to-day driving between 1,000 and 3,000 RPMs, you do get a lot more of a torque shove than you do in the G37, being naturally aspirated. But the acceleration is good. It's going to be sufficient for 95% of people, and I think that's what they were going for with this car. It's aimed to be, something for everybody. A sports sedan that is comfortable, looks good, and they're just trying to get the broadest audience they can with this car. So for those of you that tuned into my first video review on my G37, I hope that you notice an improvement in this video. I've tried my best to minimize the amount of hesitation in my speaking. Obviously I'm not perfect, but I'm trying my best to improve. I think that this is a little bit more of a better candidate for a review, being a brand new vehicle. There's going to be a lot more interest hopefully for this online. And my next review, which I mentioned I believe in my last one, is going to be on a BMW 535i. So I should have that coming out within the next week or so. I'm working on getting that vehicle lined up. But for those of you that enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I've improved my video skills. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one.